Hello, I'm Naina Sabarwal Batra. Welcome to Money Meets Mission, a podcast brought to you by AVPN, the largest social investing community in Asia. I'm excited to host leaders from across the business, philanthropy, and impact investing worlds to share stories of how they are putting their resources to work, tackling some of the largest and most complex social and environmental issues facing Asia today.
In any investment, the first thing you want to do is you want to learn about the space and try to develop your choices.
The screening of the people and the mission is very important, and the stakeholder environment that you're operating in is very important. And then after that, you really have to roll with it, because whatever impact measurement plan you had, now with COVID, everything changes, right?
In this episode, hear how families from Hong Kong-based Peterson Holdings Company Limited and Singapore-based Blue 7 reviewed their investment approaches and how you can also embark on a worthwhile impact investing journey.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tong Young. I'm the CEO of my family business, Peterson Group. I started engaging in philanthropy probably about 10 years ago. So my family has always been the old-fashioned type of philanthropy. We've been giving scholarships, we've been donating to hospitals, and that was a big part of our family ethos. Over the years, I think being an entrepreneurial family, I started exploring to social enterprises and later on impact investments. So we have now allocated both on the real estate side, asset management side, and also in the family office side, different strategies that actually engage in impact investments around globally. We have some in the US, some in Asia, and less in Europe. We're actually exploring Europe as well. This crosses between liquid strategies and mostly in liquid strategies. And we are also, obviously, we have incorporated exclusions. We've gone through the first step of exclusions, so we try to not invest in anything that is doing harm, from environmental to other asset classes. So in short, very glad to be here. I'm also sit on the board of AVPN, and hope to do my bit to help to make the world a better place.
Thank you very much, Tony. Lots of questions right off of the introduction. I will hold my thoughts. I'll now move to Reseng to share with us on the investment philosophy of Blue 7.
First, I would like to maybe just describe what Blue is, because we are kind of different. We're a much younger investment firm. And maybe the way to look at Blue is we see ourselves as a startup impact investment firm that is funded by the family of Dr. Juanita Fu, our founder. And I want to just say a few words about our personal journey into this, because I think it's quite important in this space when you talk about sustainability and doing things which are responsible. It has to resonate from a history and from somewhere deep inside each of us. So Juanita is what I would call a real pioneering spirit. She's a medical doctor by training, and she was actually Medicine Sans Frontier's first recruit in Singapore, as well as one of the first biotech VC in Southeast Asia. That, incidentally, was how we met, because I was also in this exciting biotech investment field at the turn of this millennium, when just after the human genome was being sequenced. Fast forward 15 years later, Juanita went on a trip to Africa and saw the possibility of going beyond philanthropy to achieve social goals within a business venture. She was intrigued, and therein lies the germ of the idea of Blue 7 was kindled. My own context is more typical of the career professional who arrives at half-century milestone and started being more interested in matters, subjects of significance rather than business strategies. So I joined and volunteered almost full-time with a regional NGO and worked on very vastly different KPIs like community projects, children's homes, charity, fundraising. And I must confess, my outcome productivity, as I tend to measure them, plummeted massively. But my humility soared, and so my friends liked me a little better. So Anita and I then started this conversation about how to go beyond funding and working with charities and NGOs to really leverage business models more effectively to achieve social goals. Blue 7 is our experiment towards answering that quest. You know, we have basically looked at our mission to use capital to catalyze business goals towards, what we now call multi-stakeholders to achieve these ESG and economic returns. As Vic had said, we invest across the portfolio of multi-classes and we employ, catalytic instruments from debt to equity. We have a big difference, though, in the way we approach our investment thesis, which is our philosophy of really using our hearts, which we view equally important as using our heads. So we have 7 values, which is reflected in the Blue 7 name, and we pair them up. So we think of partnership and dignity. We think of innovation and resilience. We think of success with humility and faith, which brings it all together. Because it's in many ways, a difficult journey and with many, many unknowns and more questions than answers. So we decided to stay broad in our focus, encompassing, broad categories of resilient communities, environment, dignified livelihoods. But mainly in our focus, we tend to ask ourselves 2 main questions, which is, what do we care and what do we know? What about these areas that gets us passionate and where we can make a contribution? Which is the second question. How can we contribute to what we're doing and to our investees? And we see ourselves as having the nimbleness of a startup in our deal review and decision making, whilst bringing, hopefully some of the experience of seasoned investors. This kind of maps out for us currently where our portfolio stands. Some of them are still work in progress, but most of these would be up and running by the end of this year. And we're very thankful for people like IMP, GIN, all the various bigger institutions who have invested to think about the frameworks, the concepts, the measurements. So I'm sure we'll talk more about it later on in the conversation. So let me just pause here and turn it back to Vic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very elegantly put. And why don't I start with you then? You presented a fantastic 7-point set of values, and you talked about thinking from the heart as well as the head. So getting right to the point, if an enterprise, a family office, was beginning now, what tips would you give them about starting out, and what some of the early pitfalls to avoid?
So just to give one context, we are quite fortunate because, as you see, we're quite young. We only started in late 2016. So Juanita's family has a long tradition and mainstream businesses. They've gone on to that multi-generation transition where each part of the family pretty much manages their own, wealth. And so we were fortunate that we don't have, well, fortunate and maybe not, but we're different in the sense that we don't have this linkage to a legacy business and, multi family office stakeholders, which has to be considered. So having said that, what we did was when we started out, I think it's just important to start with a clean slate, like a tabula rasa, and give yourself the freedom to choose and map out what you want to do. We learned a lot. The learning curve was tremendously steep. You can see from all the taxonomy and all the various players, and we're trying to solve very complicated problems that's been with humanity ever since we started. So start with something and learn from others. So here I want to just give special mention to the RS group and Annie Chan in particular. We heard her story and we're very encouraged by the way she adopted this total portfolio approach. and how she challenged all of us impact investors, particularly family offices, to be sustainable ourselves, even as we ask investees to be sustainable. And we thought, okay, that was a bit of a aha moment for us to say, okay, we got to walk the talk. So this is also jives in with making sure that you dig deep, because you need to be sustainable. This is not a 5-year plan you're embarking on. Most of the portfolio we go into will be very, very fortunate if we can get liquidity in 5 years. So that was something I would say is important.
Thank you, Singh. I think the notion of patient capital, coupled with the point that you raised about being independent, is critical, because it certainly would then inform the process with respect to what you pick and choose to have in your portfolio. Tony, turning to you, a very busy person, right, with an operating business to manage, and not just in your neck of the woods, but globally. So how do you source opportunities? How do they come to you? What do you look for in the opportunities? Do you have a particular set of causes that are closer to home, closer to heart, to yourself, family? How would you evaluate things that you choose to spend time on and resources on?
Well, I think to start off, we have a portfolio of real estate, private equity, venture capital, debt, liquids. I think every family should have determined in time how they want to diversify their portfolio, and then you layer that on top of different risk factors. So what our firm looks at, we have a low risk bucket, middle risk bucket, and high risk bucket. High risk buckets such as startups, such as early stage tech, such as emerging markets. We would consider that as a high risk bucket. So within these buckets, we then have the traditional investments that we made, but our team now has been much more active in looking for allocations into the impact space. So you're actually layering the impact angle on top of the traditional strategies. And in each bucket, then you define your allocation. For example, in real estate, you will be deploying large sums of capital. In large impact funds, liquid funds, you'll be deploying large sums of capital. But then in early stage startups, which are less illiquid, and you take on a little more risk, there will be smaller checks. So everybody has to first decide how much and where they want to spend their time on. Some people tend to be more active. So if you want to be operating an impact fund or operating an impact business, then you have to allocate that certain amount of time. But if you're operating a bigger size allocation portfolio, then you have to rely on good quality managers, whether from private banks or so forth. So once you define that, and so we source everything from friends in the private banking industry and other investment managers to smaller impact funds, and then co-investments from and direct deals from my team who has friends and associations in different private equity and venture capital circles. So it's quite a breadth that we developed. It took us 5-6 years to develop this network in different spaces, but that's how we kind of find opportunities. In your question, is there any particular passion that we like? We definitely like to help out in the environment and poverty. Those two are very interesting areas we look at. It also relates back into our business as well. So how can we transform when we're investing in other businesses, and we're looking at how we transform our traditional businesses, and we can actually follow on and improve our requirements as well.
Tony, thank you very much. I guess my next question will be to both of you. We've come a long way in the impact and sustainable investing stage. So you now see more and more public listed opportunities, as Tony rightly mentioned, and certainly listing you've highlighted. And then, of course, the natural source of such opportunities remains the private space and through contacts that you've got. Question to both of you is, irrespective of how or where that opportunity comes from, what do you look for if it is to partner with someone? What do you look for in the person you're partnering with or the entity you're partnering with before you choose to deploy your resources? Tony, why don't you continue, and then I'll come to Huiseng with the same.
Well, definitely, I think number one is if it's a entrepreneur or if it's a fund manager, we have to look for the actual passion that they have for the space, and that's something we share quite a lot. We understand that. So James Chen from another family who has contributed quite a lot, he talks about privatizing failures, right? But then you could have some passion. His rigor continues to thrive and has built this very impactful campaign for Vision. We believe that we want to partner the same partners. That's number one, even before the business model comes. Does this person have the dedication, commitment, and grit to carry on both the passion and the strategy for the impact investments? So that's the number one thing that we actually look for in our partnerships. So from fund manager perspective, from an entrepreneur's perspective, or in any asset classes.
Fantastic. Anything to add, Huising?
No, I definitely echo what Tony said. The person, their passion, and also their history tells a lot, because this is going to be a long journey. It's not quite getting married, but it's kind of close. And so you need to know the person in totality, not just his slide deck, his business model, etc. Because we all been around investing long enough to know about these cycles. Something's going to come along, even with the best ability and plan, and then you need to pivot or you have to change. So definitely the person comes first. Their mission or their vision is very important. That's alignment. We also look at other things because, given our investment background, we also look at the broader stakeholder environment. So who are the other investors, and is there alignment? Because ultimately, some of the biggest problems we've had in our VCPE days is at the boardroom rather than with the management. So alignment of the stakeholders and how they also extend beyond that. I mean, now we know we have to look at supply chains, how they treat their staff. So going beyond that, the whole totality of all the stakeholders in what they're trying to do is I think, even more important in these times that we've been taught by COVID. So that's something. And then we try and make sure that we really try and challenge them to see whether their initial business model makes sense. Because when we go in, as we know, as investors, we go in and we will fund them for maybe a year, 18 months, maybe 2 years, but not beyond then. And so in the next 2 years, before their cash burnout finishes, and when they go hopefully to an inflection point, a next round, we want to make sure that there are certain milestones which they can achieve. This is a resiliency point, I guess. And then, of course, there's all these, optimistic stretch goals that would be great if they achieve it. So we do challenge them on the short-term plan quite a bit.
So it's evident from the responses from both of you that you brought your the rigor that you apply in your business and in your training down to the way you look at opportunities as well. So Tony, coming to you, obviously your day to day in terms of the businesses that you manage, commercial rigor is critical. Does that apply in any shape or form to the impact opportunities that attract your attention? And if so, what are some of the things that you typically use to measure success?
So I think we function in several buckets. Maybe I should explain this first. When we're looking how we deploy our purpose capital, we have 4 buckets. We have the first bucket, which is philanthropy. The second bucket, which is social enterprise. The third bucket, which is impact investment with lower return, and investment with market return, right? So when we're across all these buckets, the same evaluation goes through how much social impact they create. Okay, the difference is in philanthropy, in period grants, you don't expect anything back, right? And then the social enterprise, you probably expect some capital back, but in a very, very long time. And then you have the below market return and long-term return. So the measurements for those is very different. In the ones that we define as 20% IRR, market-driven, we hold them to the same rigor of financial returns, but also in a set of social returns as well. Okay, so we in different buckets, we will set different requirements depending on what it is. In some cases, we expect it, we see this investment as an early center venture, we probably lose everything. But then we know we have tried it. We were trying a new model that we hope that could scale to day one. If we create enough even attention or awareness of this new impactful health structure, that is already achieved already. So it really depends on the opportunity itself. It cannot be generalized. If we're putting money in a green bond, that is a simple measurement, right? It's just what kind of interest return. So it depends on if it's a illiquid versus liquid, if it's a single portfolio project with defining your own KPIs. It really spreads out to different asset classes and structures.
Tony, thank you for that, because what your response clearly demonstrates is that measurement certainly has now become a critical part of evaluating success where it's applicable. Yes. While some time ago it may not have been. So that's great. Same question to you, Huising.
No, I think Tony's hit the nail on it. You need to build a portfolio if you can. But having said, I'll just make one caveat. So if you're starting out and you want to start in slowly and you're going to put more eggs in a few buckets, then choose them carefully, but make sure that you're okay with whatever outcome happens. But if you can, then try and build this portfolio approach, because it's almost impossible, not entirely, but it's almost impossible to look at one entity or one asset class and expect them to deliver the double or triple bottom line. That's we tried it, and then we learned that no, it's not possible. On the business plan, they will tell you that, but really, it's not going to happen. So I think that if you can, as an impact investor, create a portfolio, you will save yourself a bit of grief, and you have a much better journey with your investees. And the other thing that I would just add to that is that as we are looking at measurements, it's very hard for us, for Blue 7, because we tend to be minority investors. We only invest like 6 to low 7-digit numbers in any one. We see ourselves as coming in early stage. We catalyze certain things. We step in at a gap where bigger institutions don't. That's for the direct side. For the listed and the funds, that's different. We don't need to talk so much about that, because I think most people know how to do those more mainstream asset classes. So it's very hard for us to going in as minority with oftentimes very lean management, trying to do impact and be themselves sustainable, to give us all these wonderful Iris Plus reports, etc., etc. So I think we need to take a more holistic and intuitive view. So coming back to the earlier question, the screening of the people and the mission is very important, and the stakeholder environment that you're operating in is very important. And then after that, you really have to roll with it, because whatever impact measurement plan you had, now with COVID, everything changes, right? So all those metrics before would have maybe for some they would have improved, but for most they have fallen through the floor, and you have to go back and start again. So I think it's important to remain flexible and realistic in their expectation, and also be supportive, whatever the management and quantitative process you have agreed with them.
I think what the response clearly evidences is that there are a lot of thought has been given to how you will evaluate things, both of you. So it has to come within a certain structure. So some thought has to be given, and you've articulated, both of you, that process very well. And more importantly, you've also articulated that measurement is important, but it has to be commensurate to the opportunity and perhaps applicable to how you're deploying resources. So what we've established is that the functioning of this space is increasingly becoming an equal part science and equal part art. So that's fantastic. So Tony, let me come to you and ask you a question about the operating businesses. So once you very clearly articulated the various buckets within which you see opportunities and then set them up, what is happening in the operating businesses, particularly in the real estate space, with respect to incorporating some of the sustainability principles? Has that begun? Is it too early, too costly, or are you well on your way?
Actually, maybe I could define that in two buckets. The first bucket is, especially after COVID, we have seen a tremendous interest in better ESG requirements in the tenants when they're looking for a new office space. So right now, whether from a residential point of view or from an office point of view, I think internationally, all the multinationals are looking for obviously environmental requirements for new builds, but also now, especially after COVID, there's a health and safety measurements as well. So this amongst the global portfolio, we're discussing this every day, and how do we make buildings more environmentally friendly and also more health for the mental mindset as well, because that is what we see consumers demand, and that is what we see also doing better for the environment and people. So that's point one. Point two, in real estate, there's new products coming out that is getting very interesting. For example, in London, one of our asset managers, they're building residentials for homeless, which is guaranteed by the government for 25 years. Now it's almost like an institutional product. So in one end we're building homeless shelters, and the other end we're building disabled homes, which are new products. And we found that there's a great institutional demand for if we create products like these to help society doing better. I think that's point two. And point three, especially during COVID, unfortunately, we had to shut down our hotels, but this gave me an opportunity to rethink of what, in the past, when you're operating a hotel on a day-to-day basis, it's hard to make changes. But in the unfortunate event of COVID, we had to stop everything and rethink how we're going to look as our business plan going forward. So this gave me a big opportunity to restructure my whole hotel into, for example, getting rid of all the plastic bottles, which we did, installing water filters in the building so that we can refill fresh water in glass bottles for the rooms. We are now looking at how to make a big M&E overhaul to make the hotel much more environmentally efficient. We are unfortunately we had to lay off some of the staff, but when we are going to rebuild the team, we will apply and restructure some of those ESG requirements in terms of equality, in terms of opportunities going forward. We are now redefining some of the shifts for people who unfortunately were laid off in other businesses, and how we can train underprivileged to be in the hospitality and the hospitality industry. So this actually, the COVID was an unfortunate event, but it gave us the opportunity to take a breather and rethink how we want to rebuild our business going forward. So there's a lot of things happening in real estate that actually the trend will be going towards the ESG elements.
Thank you, Tony. Just a follow-up question: is it more costly to make buildings more sustainably friendly?
In some cases, we are able to offset the cost. So obviously, with water, for example, we don't have to buy bottled water every day. That obviously offsets the cost. In some elements, it is more costly. But however, we think that if we reach a certain standard, consumers will be appreciated, and we will have a preference for us. So it does help the revenue side as well to offset the demand. I think globally, more and more multinationals now, they'll be looking at, when you're selecting your hotel's RFP, there would be requirements that you need to be sort of environmentally friendly before you can go to those hotels. And that's a major trend. This is not only us, this is all the big boys, the IHGs, the Marriotts of the world. Everybody is looking at this and taking actually this opportunity to rethink this.
Tony, thank you. And you shared some great examples of how the space to make impact is not something you set aside and do it that way, but perhaps incorporating it into the core business is also beginning to happen. So that's fantastic to see. Listen, you mentioned something about COVID, and you said that things have changed. Now, looking at some of the causes that are close to Blue 7, such as livelihood resilience and community development, what is the lens that you are now beginning to apply to such causes, given what's happened in COVID, or has nothing changed from that perspective?
The answer is a yes and no. As we know, COVID started as a medical healthcare problem. There are something like 400 drugs and vaccine projects being developed right now. we're not going to get a vaccine before the next year. And even then, the rollout, especially for emerging communities, is going to take even longer. So this problem is going to be with us for a while. And compounded with it, the economics of it is we've heard all those trillions of dollars that everyone is spending on this effort, whether it's PPEs, it's tests, it's drugs, of course, and various other things. That has shifted a huge amount of resources away from other needy causes, of which, livelihood, community, environment is one of them. So it's really important from a mindset point of view that we double down. In fact, we keep these causes and we do more. And we will have to do different things. We have to work together, all this blended finance, syndicates, etc., that needs to come together. So that's one context of doing it. Many of us and many family offices, I'm sure, in their investment teams are facing a lot of challenges because generally they would have invested across many traditional asset classes, and we've seen how the S&P has gone up and down. So a lot of people are now suffering in that traditional wealth position and trying to triage those first, and so again diverting attention. So coming back in a long-winded way to your question, what we are doing is we are focusing on things which are important, essentials, and those which are disproportionately affected by the pandemic. And we know that these social enterprises are going to face delays in their funding. So we are extending, or we're trying to work on bridge financing, trying to work on all kinds of other instruments that can extend them some breathing space for, the next couple of years. We're also taking the opportunity from our own liquidity point of view. Of course, liquidity lens has now increased for all investors. So we're also taking the opportunity to really work on our shorter term asset class, like our listed global securities, thematic wise. We actually started this last year with, I would say, a very highly innovative AI-enabled asset manager in Singapore. They're called Yakin Capital, and the founder is a good friend of ours. So we worked with them and learned and crafted together these thematic selections of scope and really advocated all these ESG scoring, and it gave us the opportunity to learn, about all these, Arabesque, Rebecca, Sam, what Bloomberg is doing. And so we've now come out with a few themes, which has extended our usual focus. And we hope that they will give us some liquidity, which will enable us to support our more catalytic capital deployment for the next few years. So I think that's, at a high level, some of the changes that's going on.
No two family offices are the same, but Tony and Wee Sing have highlighted tips that any family offices starting out in impact investing can leverage. This includes setting clear goals and expectations, identifying investment priorities and evaluation criteria, and reassessing one's own sustainability and business operations. Now let's explore how these family offices, regardless of how big or lean they are ensuring that they maximize social impact.
Ultimately, impact benefits someone, an organization, a group of individuals, or a cause. To what extent do you, the two of you, involve the end beneficiary in the feedback loop associated with whether you're making the difference with your resources or not? So who'd like to take that question, Tony or Wee Sing?
I think we in the philanthropy end, where we work with hospitals and we for some of the social enterprises we support, me and my team get more involved and actually being able to connect with those end beneficiaries. A lot of them naturally are in Hong Kong, where I'm based. But on a greater scale, because we work with a lot of fund managers and illiquid managers, sometimes we don't have the access to actually go and talk to the beneficiaries ourselves. And we rely on our partners then to connect with those people.
Fantastic. So, Wee Sing, is there any such feedback loop in your endeavors also?
No, we can't. There's only three of us in the team. So we're one of these lean startups. But yes, I think, it's exactly as Tony says. We try and do that really at our due diligence level. And then once that happens, and unless something, very good or very bad comes about, we don't really have much of a bandwidth to keep that effort going on. But we see really our influence, our advocacy with really the intermediaries that we work with and some of the ecosystem players that we partner with. And I think that's where we see, with a small team and trying to multiply how we can grow our influence. That's the only way we can do it. Yeah.
Fantastic. So without really going into details, how do you size your contribution in dollar and cents terms when something catches your attention?
We have quite a range. So for smaller startups like seed stage, we rely on we have to have a reliable partner to actually lead that discussion, because the current framework of our team was not built to nurture and be hands-on VC fund nurturing entrepreneurs. It's just not the way we were set up. So there's a certain size that we don't do direct. We must go through co-investments and funds. When it grows to a certain sizable B round investment, then our team gets more involved into the actual due diligence. Maybe we'll look at direct deals. In terms of sizing, as I said, we have a portfolio that we have just in tech. We have things we are in seed round, A round, B round, C round, except growth rounds. And if it's too small for us, the team to function, because of the travel, we just have to rely on third parties, intermediaries to help us out on those.
Fantastic. No, thank you. This is very instructive. Do you actively participate in policy initiatives at local government or central government level in order to shape policy to support social causes that you and like-minded individuals are pursuing? I guess an associated point to that is advocacy in general, right? So it may not necessarily be sitting across a table to those who formulate policies, but generally effort around the advocacy for causes to raise awareness. I think it's a linked point. Tony, any thoughts?
We usually don't spend too much time with working with the government. We love to do things that the government, it doesn't fit into the government criteria, right? Because if an enterprise or an NGO can get money from the government or other places, then there's less value for us to add. So we want to contribute and contribute to the ones who can't or doesn't want to spend filling decks of papers into government compliance issues. So that's part one. We try to stay away from government-related investments. And the advocacy, what we're doing right now, we're trying to spread the word that family offices can make a difference, or family business can make a difference in terms of the impactful. So we, from a local level to a more international level, we try to demonstrate by ourselves that we have put capital and money where we think that makes a difference, and then we hope to share some of those experiences to tell people that actually it does work, and it's not just a myth. And a lot of families who are just starting out, I've been there, being a younger generation trying to persuade the older generation. You need case examples, you need successful stories, and that's what when me and some of my peers from Hong Kong, the family office, we try to do more so that we have more successful cases to tell people.
Fantastic. Tony, thank you for being candid, and I guess it links back to what Wei Sing said earlier. It's best to stay independent and get on with it. So why don't I give both of you the opportunity to say in a few words, share your final thoughts, and perhaps also share, how should they set themselves up within the impact space.
In any investment, the first thing you want to do is you want to blank and learn about the space and try to develop to your choices, what you can do and what you cannot do. And I think that's important because it's so exciting. You get passionate about something. I want to do a startup. I want to operate it myself, or I want to put money in impact fund. And here's a long fund and here's a green bond. It's so exciting to plug yourself into everything. But I think for any family office out there, it's important that you actually blanket the space first and actually understand how and where you want to spend your resource to, because it is tremendous time. From the different types of thematic passionate to entry points, if you put in a grid, that's like a 50-page, and then you cross it over all the different banks like Standard Chartered, then you're good. That's a 3-year research project by itself, right? So it is important to really focus a little bit more on how much time you have, how much capital you have to run, what's the objective, to redefine internally first before going around and looking at everything. This is it. There's so much material opportunities there. So know yourself, know your family, what the objectives are, and how much time and resource you want to spend on it. I think that'll be the recommendation I give to a lot of people.
Fantastic and great thoughts. Thank you. Wissing?
Absolutely. Call to action to all investors and earthlings. This impact investment landscape is ironically evergreen, and the need for solutions abundant. So join the still pioneer generation. Your progenies and future generations will thank you for it. So you have a great legacy. Craft your own impact story with both your head and your heart. The main measure is make sure it's a story that you and your community will enjoy listening to. If not now, then when?
Thank you. Thank you, both of you, Tony and Wissing. Fantastic discussion. You took us through a great journey of looking into, alongside yourselves, the frameworks that you developed through years of endeavor in this space, how you look at the opportunities, and more importantly, how specific you've gotten and where you choose to make impact and deploy resources.
Thank you for listening to this episode on how family offices are establishing a strong legacy by maximizing social impact across their portfolio. This discussion was adapted from the AVPN Virtual Conference 2020, which brought together more than 7,500 people in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis to discuss the mounting issues facing Asia and how our community of social investors have a critical role to play to catalyze solutions. If you would like to connect more deeply with the AVPN community, you can reach out to us at knowledge@avpn.asia to explore opportunities. We would like to thank our lead partners, Chandler Foundation, Stockholm Environment Institute, and Edan Prize Foundation for their continuous support. We hope that you have been inspired to reach across the silos and work together to create systemic change and build the tomorrow that humanity deserves. We are all social investors now.